All? I think that the microphone needs to be brought up just a tiny bit. I don't know whether the volume, if it's possible. But anyway, my name is Alain Barker, and I'm president of the Bloomington Rotary Club. I'm really happy to be with you all once again. Today is September 20th. I had it September 13th in my notes here, but in fact, it is the September 20th. Time is shifting so fast that sometimes we don't know if it's coming or going. Hope you're all well. And you know, with the passing of the Queen of England and all the hoopla and ceremonies and extraordinary, yesterday being such an extraordinary day, I thought I would just mention a few things related to that. First, September 20th is the day in 1967 that the British liner QE2 was launched in Clydebank, Scotland. It's also the same day in 1909, and this is something about my life, you know, my history, that the British Parliament passed the South Africa Act, unifying the country for the first time and declaring both English and Dutch as official languages. I would imagine it was English and Afrikaans. And that's despite the fact that there were 9 other local languages in South Africa. But as we all know, in Ukraine, the dates blur. And as the war there continues, Rotary is at work helping the Ukrainian people who have had to flee and those who remain in the country. Rotary has made helping Ukrainians a priority of the Rotary Disaster Response Fund, using donations of more than $15 million in contributions to provide people with essential items such as water, food, shelter, medicine, clothing. Grants are being made to the Rotary clubs in Ukraine, Poland, Hungary, Moldova, and here in the US and throughout the world to bring relief to Ukrainians. So we just wanted to remind you that donations from this club, from you, are among those now at work in support of Ukraine. We in Rotary can do much together. And if you want to contribute, use the new link that we're going to be providing to you in the roundabout to donate to Rotary International Foundation. Thank you so much. Okay, we have birthdays to celebrate. Tim Thrasher, September 19th. Congratulations, Tim. We also have Brian Price, September 20th. And we have member anniversaries, Cindy Neidhart, who might be online, 2 years, and then Benjamin Pearson, 1 year. So congratulations to all. Steve Mobley, would you like to come up and introduce the guests? Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Rotarians and guests. We have 8 guests today. First, we have Stan Jacobs, the guest of our president. Would you please, when I call your name, would you please stand? Thank you. He is involved with district membership. Sarah Falk, the guest of Stan Jacobs. Bill Falk, the guest of Stan Jacobs. Audrey Lowry, the guest of Stan Jacobs. Excuse me, Andrew Lowry. Sandisha Sejan, the guest who is the guest of Rotaract. Yes. Virdan Jovanovic, the guest of his father-in-law, Winston Schindel. Mary Gudick, the guest of Martha Wales. And Sarah Cochran, the guest of Trent Deckard. Now, Kyla Cox Deckard is with our people online today. Kyla, do you have any guests to introduce?
Thanks, Steve. It is a wonderful group of Rotarians here on Zoom. So if you are a guest who snuck in, please let me know, but I think we're all Rotarians here.
Thank you, Kyla. Thank you so much. It's good to see you there, and it's very good to see you when you're here as well. Thank you so much for anchoring the Zoom session online today. Very kind of you. Okay, So should we, I think we're going to move to our reflections. So Teresa, Clara, would you like to come up?
So I'm a new member of Rotary, just joined in May, and so have been reflecting on my experience as a Rotarian. And what making your way in the world today takes everything you've got. Taking a break from all your worries sure would help a lot. You may recognize this tune from the popular sitcom Cheers. I'm sure I was too young to watch middle-aged folks sitting around a bar at 10 years old, but somehow I connected with their struggles. 4 weeks ago, the Cheers theme song came to mind as I walked into this building. And it reminded me of my favorite place in Connecticut, where I moved from just over a year ago. Until COVID hit, I had a co-working office space in Stamford, Connecticut's Old Town Hall. I would walk up the grand marble staircase and sit in the old courtroom to work. No matter the challenges I faced that day, the people always made me smile. Even though we were solving different problems, we created a shared history. The people there knew my name and were always glad that I came. 4 weeks ago, that was the same feeling I had walking into this building. I left my worries behind and put a smile on my face because at that moment, I felt that Rotary was a place where everyone was glad I came, even if they didn't know my name yet. However, little did I know that that meeting would change me. On August 23rd, I attended Brandon Smith's talk on the Indiana Legislature special session. I don't follow politics closely, so I didn't know the nature of the special session in advance. But if you were here, you may remember that Brandon shared about the Indiana lawmakers' decision to ban abortion in most cases. My Rotary experience changed that day, and unfortunately, I felt afraid to return. I couldn't shake the desire to disappear. However, instead of running away in fear, I applied the four-way test to my experience. My truth is different from Brandon Smith. I imagine Brandon never had an abortion. I imagine he didn't live with a boyfriend who told him that he had to have an abortion. Brandon Smith believes that legalizing abortion is fair to all women, but he is not one of the thousands, if not millions of women who are told by the men who impregnate them that they will pay for an abortion, but do not support her right to choose. The reality is that many men accept no other decision other than abortion, but that is my truth. I don't know if Indiana made the right decision or not, but I know that something needed to change because Roe did not protect me. It hurt me. It gave him the power to choose for me. I've never spoken publicly about this topic, but as a Rotarian, I applied the four-way test, and to leave Rotary without an explanation and abandon my committee duties would have been unfair. So by sharing my truth, I hope that it will build goodwill, because even if we disagree, I hope we can still be friends. And creating a discourse for opposing viewpoints is beneficial to all concerned. Rotary is not a political or religious organization. Instead, we are united by our core cultural beliefs. While our troubles are not the same, Rotary is a place where almost everyone knows your name. I'm still working on that. But we are always glad that you came. Thank you.
Thank you, Teresa. And I'm sure that in many of our minds, we're offering you a standing applause. That was quite extraordinary. And thank you for speaking your truth. And to all of you in this club, thank you for being and witnessing your truths as we share this time together. I really, really deeply appreciate it. So that's just fantastic. And what a great example of a reflection that is deeply rooted in the heart. And I encourage you all to step up to the plate and speak your truths as you feel in the coming weeks and months ahead. Wow. Member updates. Another amazing member of our club, Judy Schroeder. She's in our thoughts as she recovers from having her aortic valve replaced and a pacemaker installed. So I think she's doing well, but we just wanted to have her in our thoughts as well. We have a few club updates that I'd like to mention here. We're now moving into the second quarter. Yay for me. I've made it through one quarter just about. We have our second, that's okay. I think the applause should be reversed. It's to all of you. Second quarter volunteers, we're going to be sending out an email, link on email to make sure that you know where to find your volunteer opportunities for club meetings. So please look out for that. Jeff McKim is online, and I believe that he's got an update for the district grant project. Jeff, do you want to speak with us?
Sure. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, fellow Rotarians. I'm pleased to announce that the Rotary Foundation has approved our district grant application for the 22-23 season. The project is for Bloomington Rotary Club to conduct 2 days of service this fall in collaboration with Purdue Extension, Monroe County Community School Corporation, and several local farms. Extension, along with MCCSC, will run 2 school field trips for the 3rd grade classes, one for each of 2 Title I schools, Clear Creek and Summit Elementary. And we're looking for volunteers who will help to conduct the field trip activities on the farm. No experience needed. The farmers and extension staff will tell us what to do. Each school will be bringing up to about 100 3rd graders, and the students are going to be divided into groups and led by volunteers to complete activities that'll help them learn about food and farming. The field trip to Summit Elementary is scheduled for October 11th, and Clear Creek Elementary is scheduled for October 18th. Unfortunately, both are Tuesdays, but that's just the way the dates worked out with the schools and the farmers. The field trips are going to consist of 4 to 5 activities or stations on the farm, and volunteers will help the staff supervise the stations. So right now we're looking for about 4 to 6 volunteers per field trip, and you'll be asked to work approximately 9:30 a.m. to 2 p.m. This is bound to be a lot of fun. Like I said, no experience needed. And please let me know as soon as you can if you're able to be one of those volunteers. Again, this is October 11th for Summit Elementary and October 18th for Clear Creek Elementary. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Jeff. Really great to see you online there. And that's in addition to, hopefully, you all see the email that I pushed out yesterday with a bunch of reminders. There's some really great events coming up, which we definitely want you to be involved in. Tim Jessen, would you like to come to the podium? Just want to make sure that this is working. Yes, it is. Well, while Tim's coming up, let me just quickly mention October 4th, that's just a reminder that Mike Baker's farm is going to be a fabulous event. For those of you who have not yet signed up, please do so. And then please keep in mind the Rotary Toast on November 4th, and bring your friends. That's going to be an absolutely fabulous, fabulous occasion. Yep.
I went to the IU football game on Saturday. Was anybody there with me? But the way that it was interesting for me was not so much the ending of the game, but that I was able to take our Afghan refugee, Sams. That's not his real name, but that's the name I'm going to use. And I asked if he would like to see an American football game, and he said yes. And so we went, and everywhere we went, when I explained what he was doing here, people welcomed him and said, "I'm so glad you're in the United States. I'm so glad we can help you and extend our welcome." And that was very, very gratifying to me. Now try to explain football, not soccer, American football to somebody who speaks very little English, and what's a down and what's the end zone. And anyhow, that was a little bit difficult, but he had a really nice, I'm going to take yours, Alan. He had a nice little machine like this, and he would speak into it, and then it would translate what I said into his language and my language into his, and we had a wonderful time. I hope sometime to be able to introduce him to our Rotary family. We haven't been able to do that yet because today he said, "I have English class." So I said, "I don't want you to stop taking your English lessons." And we're doing a wonderful thing with this refugee family. He's about 23 years old, has an older sister who's about 25, and his mother and father are also in that family. So you're doing a great thing. And I enjoyed the opportunity to show him American football. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Tim. And we have Sarah Laughlin in the room who just mentioned that there are a few items that the families are hoping that we will contribute or at least assist them with. And I just want to go through a few. Bikes, they're looking for bicycles. A sewing machine, as I mentioned last week, looking for a sewing machine. I believe that Charlotte has one that we can we can get to them somehow. A dresser, they're looking for a dresser, and they're looking for baseball hats. If they want to go to games, they have to wear baseball hats. So if you could just think of those, and I believe that there will be other things that we'll be talking about in a few weeks' time when they transition over from Dave Meyer's apartment to a new apartment of their own. A very exciting move that they're going to be involved in. Okay, I think we have a few minutes for happy dollars, so maybe 3 or 4, just so that we can celebrate other news in people's families and lives and careers. If anybody wants to mention anything, anybody online, just let us know if there's something that you'd like to mention. Who'd like to share an update, a family update or a personal update? Sarah.
I survived my double nickel high school reunion, my 55, with my friend Cindy, who came from South Carolina to go with me. We had an absolutely wonderful time.
Great, thank you. Yeah, yeah. We have one at the back there.
Here's some happy dollars. I'm just happy.
Oh, well done. Yes, congratulations. Yeah, that's really great. Anybody else with a happy dollar, what a miraculous weekend that was for football. I think that we should have a happy dollar for that one. Yeah, incredible. What's that? Oh, the Colts game was atrocious. Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, good. I think that's it. I don't know if anybody else is online. Kyla, if you want to share anything? Nothing? Nothing to share? Okay, good. Well, let's move on to our program for today. I'm really thrilled that we were able to swivel and shift yesterday as much as we did. And actually, before I do that, I want to just quickly acknowledge everybody who has supported the meeting today. Steve Mobley, thank you so much for introducing the guests and also welcoming them at the door. Our producer, Tyler Nichols, who, by the way, performed horn in the orchestra with Don Giovanni at IU Opera Theater, was spectacular. Congratulations, Tyler. Yeah, 2 more shows left this weekend. It really is a great show if you haven't seen it. Kyler online and Bill Perkins coming through with being the reporter of the week and the month. Thank you so much, Bill. Okay, well, Connie, do you want to introduce our guest?
Thank you, President Alan. Alan and Gus and I, for 3, saw what you're about, or saw a version of what you're about to see. Did anybody go to Wonder Lab and you saw what we're going to see? Okay, this has been reworked for a slightly older audience. The average age Sunday, I would say, was 7, and they loved it. I am wearing rainbow colors in honor of our presentation today. This project won the Jacobs School of Music 2022 Innovation Competition and a grant from the Center for Rural Engagement. Thank you very much, Alan Barker. With this support, Walker Smith shared his show 4 times at Wonder Lab, and he plans to take the show to schools in Bloomington, Southern Indiana, and beyond. Walker Smith, get this. I tried to major in biology. I mean, that is hard. This kid is majoring in chemistry and music composition at the same time. A native of Knoxville, Tennessee, he has been interested in science communication from a young age. In middle school, he founded The Chemistry Shack, a YouTube channel in which he performed chemistry experiments and explained the science behind them. His channel now boasts an impressive 21,000 subscribers, more than 40 videos, and millions of views. In college, Walker's chemistry research and skill at scientific communication have resulted in his receiving prestigious national fellowships from the Goldwater Foundation and American Chemical Society. He has been interested in music also from a young age and currently studies composition at the renowned Jacobs. His compositions have been recognized in national competitions, presented at the International Computer Music Festival, and performed by members of the Cincinnati Symphony Orchestra. The sound of molecules, which you are about to literally hear, combines Walker's interest in scientific research, music, and scientific communication. Walker will now share and describe the magic of combining arts and science. Somewhere over the rainbow walked in Smith.
Yes. Thank you, Connie. Is the volume level good? Thank you, Connie, for the marvelous introduction and for the fantastic Herald Times article on the sound of molecules. So I'm delighted to share with you all today my work combining chemistry with music in this really interesting project. So today I hope to answer three big questions. Who am I? What do molecules sound like? And why am I dressed like this? So to start with me, as Connie mentioned, I am a chemist, and my work involves combining existing molecules to find ways to make new molecules that might have applications in materials, synthetic fibers, plastics. The lab that I work in, we're mostly focused on medicines, and I've actually also worked at Eli Lilly in Indianapolis doing discovery research, trying to combine molecules to make new potential medicines. But I'm also a composer, and that work is oddly similar to chemistry because it involves combining sounds, studying music, combining sounds, melodies, instruments, harmonies, and rhythms to make entirely new songs, new pieces. So because both of these areas involve, taking something, multiple things, combining them to produce something new, I thought, what would happen if I combined these two interests? What would that result in? And that led me to the question, what do molecules sound like? Which seems like a ridiculous question because we can't hear molecules literally. But it turns out using techniques from electronic music, which is mainly concerned with thinking about music as a stream, think about music as a stream of data, right? It's sound. There we go, stay up there. Music, can be represented in data like the WAV files or the MP3 files that you would play on your computer. Those are just large data sets. And there's a field called data sonification, which involves finding ways to represent data sets, not just in chemistry, any sort of data set through sound. And this, is in contrast to a field which you guys are probably more familiar with, and most people I don't think even consider that this is a field, but data visualization is a field of research and a field of work. But it's so ubiquitous. We're so used to seeing data visualized in graphs and charts that we don't even think about it. But hearing data is an interesting way to look at it. And it has a number of applications and sort of advantages. The first is, and perhaps the most obvious, is accessibility of data to people with visual impairments. Differently abled people, we can create representations that allow people to hear the data. And there have been some studies in the Journal of Chemical Education that have actually shown that some of these techniques of representing data through sound can actually be more effective than other like tactile or braille representations for visually impaired students. The other advantage is that supplementing vision for people who are fortunate to not have visual impairments, we can still benefit from listening to our data at the same time as looking at it. Because there's certain things that our ears are actually better at than our eyes. For one thing, our ears have 360-degree, spatial perception. If I were to ask any of you what's directly behind you, well, you'd have to turn around to let me know. But if someone clapped behind you, you'd be able to tell me where that sound came from. And that's just one example. Another thing our ears are really good at is distinguishing important signals from really noisy data sets. There's been some research to show that our ears can actually do that a little bit better than our eyes. And finally, the application that I have been most interested in is combining music and sound with visuals and demonstrations and goofy outfits for public science engagement, and just taking a really unique approach to representing and teaching chemistry through incorporating music and in ways that can teach audiences about music and chemistry at the same time. So I'd like to, in just a moment, I'd like to play the first part of this show. So this was the premiere performance that I did in December 2021, titled "The Sound of Molecules." You'll notice that I'm dressed in perhaps an equally ridiculous, maybe a slightly less ridiculous than this, but the costumes are a big part of this. And before I actually play this, you'll notice that this was performed in Our Hall. How many of you guys have been to a concert in Our Hall at Indiana? Okay, yeah, so fair number. So this will look much different than many of the concerts that you've seen in Our Hall. There's no orchestra on stage. It's just me, my computer, a projector. It starts out like a lecture, and it sort of morphs into a performance with sort of narration. So yeah, without further ado, let's listen to the premiere of The Sound of Molecules.
Good morning, class. Welcome to today's lecture. It's titled "The Sound of Molecules," as I'm sure you can see. So let's jump right into it. But before I get started, they did ask me to announce that the Our Hall podium has been reported missing again. If anyone accidentally grabbed it after last class, just please return it as soon as possible. So that's squared away. I think we can get into the actual meat of the talk. So here are a bunch of the molecules we've been studying. And by a show of hands, how many of you have been working on your homework for this class and thought, wow, these are some really cool looking molecules, but I wonder what they sound like? Okay, so pretty much everyone's hand went up, because this is like something that we all wonder like all the time since we were kids, you know? But the idea of hearing a molecule doesn't make sense, because molecules are really tiny. So it doesn't make sense that we would be able to hear any sounds that they make. But maybe there's a way to turn the activities of molecules into sounds. Now, how would we do that? And what do I mean when I say activities of molecules? Well, you see, molecules are doing a lot of stuff. They're rotating around, they're stretching and bending, they're vibrating, and they're moving through space. And maybe there's a way to turn these motions into sound. And in order to understand what molecules actually sound like, we need help from our friend Spectroscopy Steve. And Spectroscopy Steve is great because he knows a lot about nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy, which is an analytical technique that chemists use to understand the structures of molecules. But it can also allow us to hear what a molecule sounds like. So what is nuclear magnetic resonance spectroscopy? Well, it's actually pretty simple. So here's some relevant equations. And pay special attention to the top two, because those will be on the quiz following the lecture. So now that we have an idea of the physics and math behind this, let's look at how this works in practice. So Steve is going to take our molecule and put it inside of an NMR, or nuclear magnetic resonance machine. And when he does this, what is this machine? Well, it's basically, I'm simplifying a little bit here, but it's basically a really powerful electromagnet. And that's important because all of the atoms in our molecule are like little teeny tiny bar magnets. And when we put them inside an external magnetic field, they all align to face in the same direction as that dipole. But we can disrupt this alignment by adding energy in the form of light. This causes the atoms to rotate around rapidly, but they gradually return to being back in alignment with the magnetic field. Let's see that animation again, but this time plotting the amplitude of those oscillations over time. And we get a graph that looks something like this. And we can see the decreasing amplitude of these magnetic oscillations over time. And this graph is important, or the key takeaway from this graph, rather, is that it's an amplitude versus time graph, which I've kind of hinted at already. And this is really important because that's exactly what sound is. Sound is and can be represented by an amplitude versus time waveform. So with that conceptual understanding, let's listen to some actual molecules. I feel like I've probably talked enough. Let's actually hear some sounds. So the molecule that I will be performing for you guys today is called Hippolyte J. And this is a molecule that one of the graduate students in the chemistry lab that I work in on campus here spent a couple years figuring out how to make. He developed a really amazing strategy to make this really complex molecule from scratch. If you want to try making it at home, here's how he did it. And this molecule is it's an amazing molecule, so I've always wondered what it sounds like. So I'm delighted to play for you guys today the world premiere of the sound of the molecule Hippolyte J. Did you miss it? Here it is again. So yeah, that's what 3 years of chemistry research sounds like. But at this speed, it's so fast because the time scale of these atoms is so crazy fast. We can't really hear any details of the sound. So let's slow it down by a factor of 10. And at this speed, it kind of sounds like a weird molecular church bell or meditation gong or something. And the cool thing is different molecules sound slightly different. So here's a second one. Here's a third one. And here's a fourth one. And they all sound slightly different, but really those differences are very, very hard to perceive at this level. But that's because we're listening to these sounds as macroscopic observers of the micromolecular universe. And in order to hear all of the details of these sounds, we need to zoom in. So I'd invite you to join me as we shrink down to the size of an atom and listen to these molecules up close. Now we've entered the molecules world. Let's hear that sound again, but up close. At this level, we can hear all the nuances of the sound as it decays. Once the molecule's higher frequencies have faded away, we can even begin to hear the low rumble of the magnetic field. This stillness is interrupted by some molecules off in the distance. And we may even hear some other molecules nearby. As we get super close to these molecules, we can even hear the buzz of the electrons whizzing around the nucleus.
Thank you all so much for, you guys probably didn't know that you'd be bombarded with a chemistry lecture, but yeah, thank you for indulging me. So this performance was really exciting for me because I'd found a way to really combine my two interests into one, succinct performance. And I want to briefly comment on why I think this is such a new thing, because people before, I'm not the first person to think of turning molecules into sound. People have done that before, but all of the work that's been done previously has its footing, firmly in the art side or the science side. It's either on the art side, composing using some of these sounds where the only real musical connection to the underlying chemistry is the concept, but there's the sounds don't reflect the chemistry in the same way as we have the sound of the electrons buzzing around. Or it's on the, purely data sonification side. But this for me was a way to take the data and all of the sounds in the piece, and the rest of the piece, if you want to watch it, it's on my YouTube channel. There's 8 more minutes of different sounds, like hearing a crystal dissolve in solution, or a chemical reaction warming up, and so there's all these sort of sound effects, but all of the sounds come from the molecules or different electronic music manipulations of them that are, I'm able to use my creative approach to music making, but with an underlying goal of communicating the science behind it. And really at the core, this is an educational endeavor. And that's, the most important thing to me is sharing knowledge and communicating. So the next performance that I did You can see on the screen the two me's. I want to thank one of my friends in the music school for his wonderful Photoshop job. And so in the slightly more ridiculous costume, I appeared as the character Roy G. Biv. And the reason I chose this persona is because the next part of the next show that I worked on answered the question. It was titled Chromatic Chemistry, and some of you may know the word chromatic refers to music, but it actually also refers to light, right? Chroma derives from color. And so this, I addressed the question, what does light sound like? And unfortunately, I forgot to bring my toy like rainbow xylophone prop with me, but that's something that I use in the performance and at the Wonder Lab show, and kids love that. But these little toys, that go like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do, with different colors corresponding to the different notes, are actually like scientifically accurate, because different colors of light have different frequencies, as do sound. And all you have to do is just scale those frequencies way down so that they're in the human hearing range, and you can hear the different notes corresponding to different colors. The way I applied this to chemistry is by taking advantage of the fact that different elements actually release light when you add energy to them. And these are known as the visible spectra of the elements. And it's actually why stars have different colors. So some stars burn red, some yellow, some blue, some white, because of the different elements that are inside of them, releasing different wavelengths of light. And so this is actually the emission spectrum of helium, the second simplest element. These are the 7 discrete frequencies of light that are released when you add energy to helium. And I turned each of those into a different musical frequency and played them all together to make this beautiful chord. Kind of pretty, right? I think I was amazed at getting something out that wasn't just like noise. It was really cool to get this really pleasant kind of ambient. And the next thing I did with this is I said, well, I have each of the different frequencies. So what if instead of playing them as a chord, I play them as a melody? So I'll show a brief excerpt from the performance I did in the spring, where I did just that. I played the notes as a melody, and you'll see the animation on the screen.
Together into a coherent color. And we could actually break this down and listen to each of these lines individually as a melody.
And
so once I had
7 discrete about the spectrum of.
Quiet down, Roy. So once I had this nice, animation with like the synchronized audio video, and I was able to make melodies out of helium, I thought, what would I do next? And the answer was obvious. Helium dance party. So what I did was I combined helium in some melodies and chords. All of the frequencies in the piece come from the discrete lines in helium and some other elements later on. And this was just a really fun way. I added in some percussion, and some people asked me like, "Oh, where did the drums come from?" And I was like, "Oh, it's like the nuclear neutrons and protons." No, just kidding. I just added in drums because it's fun. So I'll play about a minute and a half of the really groovy helium dance party.
About helium dance party? Oh man, they're really something. That's a shame. Well, actually, I think there's one going on right now. We should here. Let me show you. But fair warning, you should buckle your seatbelts because things are about to get elemental. Hit it.
Thanks, Helium. Now I think in the interest of time, we'll move on to the rest of the presentation. But yeah, the whole video is up on YouTube. There's like about 6 minutes of Helium Dance Party preceded by a longer, like 8-minute sort of introduction in that one, but it's more performative, and I think the costume helps a lot because I really wanted people to understand where the light and sound and elements, like how that was all blending together. So I want to talk about how I've been taking this into the community, because doing these shows in our hall was great, but I, recognize, and with the help of and support of Alain, I recognize that this was something that I can, take outside of the university, and it would be really cool to share, especially with kids. When I did the show at Wonder Lab this weekend, I did 4 performances, just this past weekend, and the kids are like up, like didn't even have to say anything. They're up and dancing around, and it was just so cool. They had so many amazing questions. They honestly gave me like a free like brainstorming consultation session. They were like, what does plasma sound like? What about dark matter? I was like, wow, I guess I've got the next 4 shows locked down. I mean, these kids were so enthusiastic. My favorite little kid story was this isn't representative of like all the questions that the kids asked, but at the end of the 4th show I did on Sunday late afternoon, he couldn't have been more than 4 years old, in the front row, he raised his hand and he goes, I have a question. I'm tired. And I was like, you're tired? Me too, bud. But it was just such a cool experience to, interact with all these kids and see them really getting it and moving around and really, enjoying learning about science and music. And we did set up a full surround sound thing. So one of the things that we're not able to share with you here, unfortunately, do you guys remember the whole like electron buzzing thing? In the original performance and the one at Wonder Lab, that's actually not in stereo, like not just 2 speakers, it's speakers all around you in a circle. So you actually hear the electron sound like moving around you in space. And it was so cool seeing like kids in the front row just like sitting down, like kind of zoning out, and then they're just like looking up like, whoa, like, yeah, it's just so cool. Because that was my first experience hearing a piece like that, where I heard speakers behind me. It's just like a totally new experience. And then we also have several future performances lined up with the generous support of the Innovation Competition Funding and the Center for Rural Engagement. And so one of those is the Science Fest, which will be October 22nd at the IU Chemistry Building. There will be we haven't locked down details yet, but there will be 1 or 2 shows that day. That's another location where, like Wonder Lab, I will be doing all of the sort of bonus content like fires, laser, and all these other cool things. So if you want to hear the show, the extra content that goes beyond the recordings and the surround sound, feel free to come out to Science Fest on October 22nd. That's free to the public. I'm also traveling to some schools to deliver this presentation and workshop versions of it. One of which is Brown County Middle School, late October, and then another one is the Project School in Bloomington, which was just a collaboration that we've started setting up after talking to one of the parents who came to the Wonder Lab show this past weekend. There were a bunch of great pictures from this weekend, but this is one that I think is probably my favorite. It's a bit small there, but you can see this was after the last show. I was cleaning up, and then this posse of young scientists came up and started asking me a bunch of questions, and their curiosity was just contagious, and it was such a delight. And then I'd also like to thank Connie for her wonderful Herald Times article, and then some of the journalists, Laurel with the Center for Rural Engagement, and Devin with the College of Arts and Sciences for their wonderful press coverage of this. There are so many people to thank, and all of the funding sources. I think in the interest of time, their names are all up on the board. Since Alain is here, let's give him a wonderful round of applause for supporting this and just being such a good, you've been such a good mentor and so encouraging and helping me figure out, how to take this. Back in January, when we had our initial conversations, I didn't know I knew I wanted to do something like this, but I had no idea what form it would take. I had no idea it would be happening this soon and this fast. So thank you so much. And I would be happy to answer any questions that you all have. Thank you so much. Yes. That's a question that I've been, trying to answer for myself for the past year, because I think there's a lot of possibilities with this. I can say that I've always imagined myself as a professor, like teaching, and I think this would be a really cool way to, if I wanted to still pursue that path. There's a possibility of having this be like outreach, like to supplement my teaching, or even working this into the classroom setting. I think that could be really cool. The showman in me is like, let's like do a PBS kids show, like Bill Nye Part 2, except DJ, and I think that's also maybe a possibility. But I know for sure that whatever I'll end up doing, like teaching, will be a big part of it, because that's really important to me. Yes. Sorry, what?
Do you see any commercial application for this?
I guess it depends on how you define commercial. I mean, like so far the work that I've been doing is grant supported, and it's really in like the nonprofit sector. And I think that's a really cool avenue for it, because people are willing to support this because it's something that I think generates a lot of value. But maybe not in the same way that like selling a product would. But I think for me, like I definitely want to keep doing these shows, and whether that means pursuing like a more like profit-based model, or just like nonprofit with grant support, whatever way I can share these shows with the public, hopefully at a low enough cost for people to come and bring their kids and enjoy it. Yeah, that's.
I can't ask a real scientific question, but where did you get that outfit, or did you make it yourself?
I wish I made it myself. I got it on Amazon. I wish I had a cooler story, but I Googled rainbow suit, and I found a cheap rainbow suit on Amazon. Yeah. I wish I could say I was like supporting local businesses, but nope. Jeff Bezos. I think we have a question in the back, but we'll work our way around.
I can think of a lot of songs I like.
Oh. I'll take that question, and then I can check for online
I
questions.
can think of a lot of songs I like. I want to know, what's your favorite molecules?
What's my favorite molecule sound? That's a really good. I actually I'm gonna cheat and answer my favorite element instead. So kind of a different question. My favorite element is actually zinc. I wish I had a recording of zinc. It's really interesting because the helium that I played, it's kind of a simple chord. Hydrogen is like a D minor chord. Weirdly, it's like really, but most of the elements that are really complex sound kind of like just really noisy and like different kinds of noise. But zinc, for some reason, it has a lot of lines and a lot of electrons, but it sounds like this like angel singing with like vibrato or something. It's really beautiful. So yeah, zinc is definitely my favorite element, based on how it sounds. One more question? Okay, one more question from the audience, or just let me. There's no questions? Okay, one more question.
These actual sounds of the molecules, are they representations that you give them based on the wavelengths?
So that's a really good question, and that's, I think, the key to my work is that whenever you're transposing between different like senses and different representations, there's going to be some degree of arbitrariness in whatever you assign. But my work is like, it is as close to the real sound of a molecule or an atom as you could actually get. It's not the actual sound because they're so tiny that we wouldn't be able to hear any sounds that they would actually make. But what I'm doing is turning their vibrations, whether it's like the wiggling magnets that you guys saw in the first part, or the light that's released, and I'm taking all those frequencies and scaling them directly and preserving all of the relationships between them. And so in the case of the light, that's really important because we hear sort of like the ratios of, this may be getting a little too technical, but we hear like, if something has a frequency that's 2 times as fast as another sound, we'll hear that note, we'll hear that interval as an octave. And I'm preserving all those relationships, which is how, so the helium melody is like literally, I guess if helium, wrote a song, those are the notes that it would use. So that's, yeah. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Walker.
Thank you.
Thank you, Walker. And if this is an example of what goes on in musicians' minds, wouldn't it be amazing to have more students from the Jacobs School of Music come and talk to us about their creativity and innovation? As Walker suggested, I'm part of an office in the Jacobs School of Music that's been around there for 8 years, and it's the Office of Entrepreneurship and Innovation, as well as career development. So it's great to have Walker with us, and congratulations. I believe that you've got an amazing career ahead of you, no matter what you do with it. Yeah. So in honor of your presentation, we support the New Hope Families organization in town. And that also reminds me that we'll probably need to come up with a new organization for the second quarter. We'll probably do that in a week or so. I wanted to mention before we finish that there's an alert in Bloomington. There's activity going on the drain exit in Dunn Meadow near Franklin Hall. And the police have asked us to stay away from that area. So for any of you who are planning on walking down toward Sample Gates, a good suggestion is not to go in that direction. So just to make sure that you're not going in that direction, that'd be great. Okay, so next week we'll be meeting in Frangipani Hall, in the Frangipani room, and Henk Hegema will be introducing his daughter, Helene, who will talk about how the Western diet is holding your health hostage. She's a retired pediatrician educated in the Netherlands and is now co-founder and chair of Doctors for Nutrition, a not-for-profit health organization based in Adelaide, Australia. So it's going to be really fabulous to have her with us. And with that, Tyler, could you share the four-way test? And let's all stand. And of the things we think, say, or do, first, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, would it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? And fifth, is it fun? Thank you all so much. Have a great week.